Today is March 21, 2024. We are interviewing Hella Bleiweiss. I am Susan Kendall, and we are in Toronto, Canada. Hi, Hella. We want to start, if we can just ask you your birth date, where you were born.
I was born in Șamcuta Mare. That's in Romania. The date of birth was May the 3rd, 1926.
Okay. Do you have any memories earliest memories of what life was like?
Well, it was at the beginning very, very pleasant. My mother was a very educated woman, and she did everything within her power to push me up emotionally and mentally. Mostly mentally, which I'm just sorry that she couldn't really fulfill her dreams and mine because I lost her at the age of 12.
And what did your father do?
My father married my mother's youngest sister because that was the thing that the Jews did at that time. But she was a very sick woman. She has asthma. And she had a little daughter, who was my stepdaughter, who I brought up, actually. Right from the beginning till Auschwitz, of course. I had two younger brothers. One was 6 years younger. Actually, he was only 2.5 years younger than me, and the youngest one was 6 years younger than me. So I had to bring them up myself after my mother died, which it wasn't easy, but it was a pleasant thing to do, to be able to do it.
And do you remember what your house looked like?
I have a picture, actually, of my house. It's not exactly the same as it was when I was there. They changed the windows. But I remember the fields. I remember I see in front of my eyes everything, the fields, the trees, the fruits, the gardens, everything. If I could draw you a picture of all of that, which I remember very, very clearly, and I loved with all my heart.
Do you remember how many bedrooms you had?
Absolutely. At that time, having a bathroom with a built-in bath, and it was here very, very seldom that you find that we had one. And we had 1, 2, 3 bedrooms in a bachelor's bedroom, which had a separate outside entrance. I remember that, and because we lived in a small town, of course, we had everything. We had the fields, we had the animals, we had cows, we had horses, we had chickens, we had all that. So I grew up with all those things around me. And it was a very, very memorable, very pleasant thing.
And do you remember going to school?
Absolutely. I went to school till grade 4, and from grade 4 I went to high school, because at home from grade 4 you could go in to first grade high. And I remember doing that, and I did my schooling in Romanian. But my mother tongue was Hungarian.
Mm-hmm. And did you celebrate any Jewish holidays?
Everything. We celebrated all very strictly. We weren't that strictly, but we celebrated all the Jewish holidays. But it was like we have now coming Purim, At home, Purim was a very big thing. Here, they're not doing the same thing that it was done there, because there at Purim was that you brought to everybody a platter of your baked stuff and exchanged, actually. And of course, you donated a lot of the baked stuff for the people who couldn't afford it.
Was it a large Jewish community?
There was a large Jewish community. Maybe there were 300-400 families. It was a small town, you know, but there was one part of it was strictly the Jewish district, like everywhere else there is a Jewish district. There was a Jewish district. Of course, there was several different kind of synagogues, because they were the more Orthodox, the less, the Neolog, and all that. But it was very, very strict, and there was the strict religious, they're here today gone in their long gowns and all that.
Did you feel any anti-Semitism?
There was, absolutely. There were a lot of anti-Semites between them, but there were a very lot nice people. I was brought up in the mixed. I was mixing with both of them. I had Jewish friends. I had non-Jewish friends that I celebrated Christmas with them, and they celebrated my holidays with me. So we were really brought up mixed.
And where did you learn about the holidays?
At home. At home. We kept the holidays. Passover was Passover. Passover, you wouldn't eat touch bread or anything like that, for sure, you know. But, and of course, meat and all those things were kosher. The dairy and the meat was separated. Today it's mixed in, you wash it and you're clean again. But at that time, no, the dishes, dairy dishes were the dairy dishes and the meat dishes were the meat dishes, were separate. But it was strictly observed.
And what did your father do for a living?
My father was an export business of animals. He exported a lot of animals to Italy and Vienna.
And when did you first feel the tension in the air? When did you know something was happening?
Well, you sort of felt it right away, because, like I said, people would split up. There were people who were against the Jews with people who were with the Jews. So, in a small community, you knew them both very closely, and you lived with all of them closely. So you felt it, but that's what it was, mostly what was going on.
And what happened to you?
Well, was in 1944, before 1944, that part of the country was taken by Hungary, because the Germans didn't invade Romania. They only invaded Hungary. Romania said they can take care of their own Jews and destroy them the way they wanted, their own way. They didn't need the Germans in. The Hungarians handed over the Jewish people to the Germans. So that was worst.
And what happened? And
Well, we were exported to Germany. All the Jews were gathered together.
Where? Do you remember?
I remember, absolutely. I remember very well. First, we lived on, Sammy, help me out. Over the house you have?
The attic.
The attic. We lived in the attic over the barns. In a little place like this, the whole family had to sleep side by side. We were like that. We went in from June till September. In September.
And what did you do when you were
Nothing.
there?
Absolutely nothing. We just sat there all day. There was very little to eat. People used to bring in, some people were luckier, some people less. But we tried to do. Of course, there was no such a thing as kosher anymore. I remember we had, like I said, we lived mixed with Jews and non-Jews. Non-Jewish people brought us in food, which brought us in pork. We ate it because we had no choice. Starve for it. So we ate it.
And why did they do that? Why did they help you?
Because they were feeling with us and they were caring for us. Like I said, they were all kind of people. I have friends that I grew up with. Some of them were dedicated to us to the last minute, and some of them, there was a friend who I attended her birthdays. She attended my birthday. But this took place, she didn't know me anymore. If I met her, she addressed me as Miss. Instead of just calling me my name, as I always did, she just, ignored me completely, and that's what it was. But there were people who were nice. So that, like I said, and then in September of 1944, we went to Auschwitz. We arrived.
How did you get there?
By train.
What was the train ride like?
Miserable. We were thrown into wagons. No food. No, nothing. You had a barrel. Women, children, men, boys, very open. There, food. If you were looking in some certain stations, if you stepped outside, some people smuggled in a piece of bread or something. But otherwise nothing. Arrived in Auschwitz, you were taken immediately there. Everything was taken away before you even...
What did you have with you?
Pardon?
What did you have with you?
Well, whatever you could take from home, some clothes. You had no food, you had the jewelry, you had some money, you had the jewelry hidden on you. But of course, everything was taken away too. It was taken, I know, we had gold sewn in and seams of the garments, but all your clothes were taken away. You were handed some old clothes. I remember, I got a dress, a black grandma's long white dress. That was my outfit. What I got that out for after I arrived.
Do you remember your shoes?
The shoes I could keep, I was lucky. I kept my shoes. I kept my shoes all the way till I got to the concentration camp, to the working camp. I had skiing boots, because Father said to take the skiing boots with us, even though it was summer coming, because it says you can walk barefoot in the summer if you're too hot, but you cannot walk in sandals in the winter when it snows.
Mm-hmm.
So we take that with us. And that was taken away from me when I was in the concentration camp.
Do you remember getting off the train? Do you remember getting off the train?
Yeah, certainly.
What was it like?
Well, we got off the train, like I said, I was carrying my little stepsister. And as we got off the train, I was motioned to go toward Auschwitz. But this German old soldier came after us and said to me to hand my sister over to its. She asked first to whom the baby belongs. Of course, I said it's mine. She said it's hers. So he said to me to hand over the child to the mother because I'm young enough and I can walk. And they're gonna be brought by truck. Of course, which was only a story. So I handed over my little sister and I turned around and I walked back. So that's how I survived. So I was in Auschwitz from June till September.
And do you remember what it was like there? Where you slept, what you ate?
It was horrible. We slept 100 people in one room. Bunk beds, of course single. You had one blanket and one sheet. So you decide if you want it underneath you or you want it above you. So what we did, some of us, we got two of us together and used half of it under us, half of it on top of us. But the bunk bed was only this wide. And for two people, it wasn't wide enough. But we tried to manage as much as we could. And we did that. And then, when we arrived on Görlitz, we worked 12 hours a day in our manufacturing. Actually, it wasn't manufacturing, it was building aeroplanes.
How did you get there every day?
Walked.
Do you remember how you woke up? What
Well,
what
they
you
used to make the noise, they ring the bell and wake us up early in the morning. So we had to get fast dressed, and you had a cup of black coffee and a piece of bread. And that piece of bread was about 2 inches thick, like a rye bread here, 2 inches thick. And that was the ration for the day.
And how did you line up for it? Did you sit down? How did you eat the bread?
Walking to work, a piece of it. But you try to eat as little as possible to save as much as you could from it. Because the rest of the day, maybe you got a soup. If you were lucky, there was a piece of potato in it. If not, it was just a liquid. So that's what it was. And like I said, there we worked 12-hour day, 1 week daytime, 1 week nighttime.
And what did you do?
Worked on machines that, like I worked, there were pieces, metal this big, and I had to grind them down on a machine. So I did that all day long. And sabotaged as much as I could. I was caught.
Caught?
I was caught sabotaging. They caught me.
What did you do?
He came and he saw me. That was already toward the end of the war already. He looked at me with a big smile and says, "Helen, what the heck are you doing?" I said, "Nothing, I'm working." He looked at me, "Yes, you're working." He knew I was sabotaging. That was a German. He was the supervisor.
What were you planning on doing?
What I was planning on doing? Mm-hmm. I just sabotaged with it. I did the wrong thing so they couldn't use it. I just, instead of doing it the right side, I did the left side of it. So they couldn't use it anymore. He cut me of it, but of course it was toward the end. He didn't do nothing about it. Now, on the same factory that we work, there were French prisoners of war, soldiers. They worked there too. But they had a better life, of course, than we did. They get better food and everything. So they used to pass on to us a container of food almost every night. Two of them shared one, and then one they gave to us. You know? So they fooled around and they passed it, so we ate it. But that was about it.
And what happened if the guard caught you?
They didn't cut us. With the food, they didn't cut us. But with the cut, me, he didn't do nothing. Because it was toward the end already, so it was no use. It was no use. So I remember then they evacuated us before the end of the war. We walked about 3 days from the camp that we were toward I don't know where. And then they returned us back because there was nowhere to go.
What was it like when you were walking? What was the weather? Were people
The weather wasn't too bad. Sometimes it was raining. And like I said, between them two, I remember I had 2 second cousins who were older than me on the same camp as I was. And one of them, her bladder was weak and she had an accident walking to work. Now, the German military supervisor took off her panties and handed it to her. Which, of course, surprised us. Hi. So,
before we leave Auschwitz, do you remember anything else of your experience there? Other people? Any?
Well, there was a mother with a young daughter. And, of course, there were selections every week or so that they eliminated the weak. And there was this mother with a daughter. And the daughter was pushed out. So I went and changed places with this girl so that she could stay with her mother. I took her place. So the German military supervisor saw that was something going on there. So she asked what was going on. So they just said that I just sneaked into the other row. They didn't say that we exchanged places. At that time, just 16. She came over, she slapped me over the face, and she said, "You go back where you are." So we escaped, both of them, both of us. The daughter and I escaped at that time too.
Did you know what was going on?
Of course.
How did you know?
We know that selection is going to eliminate people to go to the crematorium.
So
we were aware it, because they selected the old and the sick.
And how did you survive?
Like I said, I was there from June till September. In September, they lined us up. And then they marched us out. They selected, I think, 50 people or 100 people. We went away to work to this place. And it just so happened that I was lucky because 2 people behind me, the line was cut. So I was the 98th person selected to leave. So we went to there by train to Görlitz.
And then
From
what happened?
Auschwitz to Görlitz.
And what happened there?
Well, there where we arrived, like I said, we were 100 people on a dormitory. And from there in the morning, we got a piece of bread and coffee. And then at supper time, we had a soup. So we tried to eat that. They paid us for working. They gave us a card for 50 cents, like. And sometimes on Sundays, they set up a store that you could buy a spoonful of jam for that 50 cents that they give you, or something like that. The Germans set it up there, the camp. So but that was only very short-lived because it didn't work out.
Huh. And then what happened?
Well, we were there, like I said, till June. And then in June, the Russians took over and freed us.
How did they free you? What did they do?
They did nothing. The Germans just left the camp. And the Russian soldiers moved in. So they were orienting us. And I remember nobody wanted to go to cook. Everybody wanted to be free. But then there were a few people, older people, who volunteered to go and do. So they went and cooked, and we were there for another few days. And then we just left, walked, took the train as far as we could go. We traveled, and there were, in every city where the trains arrived, there were people waiting. And like I said, we went back through Vienna, and from Vienna to Hungary, and from Hungary I went back home. And when I arrived home, I had an uncle in Romania who was in jail as a communist. So, of course, by that time he was freed because the Russians took over. So he was liberated and he came home. So when I got home, he was home already. So everything was set. But, of course, nothing that we owned we found. And then I heard that when the Germans moved out, there was a rainstorms and the roads were awful. They took our bedroom set and filled in the road so the truck could be able to pass. Somebody who was the non-Jewish, she occasionally worked for us. So she said that she saw our bedroom set out on the road, filling in. So, but some of the furniture was found, some of it was missing. And like I said, at least the house wasn't damaged. And like I said, we had barns because we had fields and we have a lot of animals. So the barns and all the fields and all that was saved.
Who took care of it?
Well, people who occupied it took care of it at the time we were gone, because they used it at their own. And then, of course, when we came back, my uncle took it back. The whole thing, we had a big home. I have the picture here still of it, and a lot of fields.
And then what happened?
Well, I was there from 1945. I left 1946 December. Went back to Hungary, and from Hungary went back to Germany. And I was in Germany on the Displaced People camp.
Why did you leave?
Because there was nothing there to do, and we wanted to go down actually to the States, because my grandmother was in the States. Two of my mother's sisters were in the States, and my father's brother was in the States. So I wanted to join them.
Mm-hmm.
But we couldn't get to America because everybody was applying to go to the States. So instead, from Germany, actually, I met my husband there in Germany, under the displaced people camp. I met him in 1947.
What was the camp like?
I think it was in Schwäbisch Hall. It wasn't bad, really. We were there, and he got a job before our wedding. We were supposed to get married, and just in the meantime, he got a job in Sweden. He wanted us to go to Sweden. So we had to get married by dispensary, and he left. And I was staying in Germany. I was left behind because when he applied, he wasn't married, and he applied only as a single man. So he left, and end of November, and I followed him in June to Sweden. And then we were in Sweden till 1950.
What did you do there?
My husband worked as a mechanic. He was a sewing machine mechanic. And he worked as a mechanic. And I had my daughter in Sweden in 1949. Like I said, and then in 1950, we came to Canada. And in 1962, I had my baby.
How did you get to Canada?
My uncle spoke to a manufacturer here to ask for to get my husband as a mechanic, to warranty a job for him as a mechanic, and he did. He signed the papers. So that was good in a way, and it wasn't good in another way. Because when we arrived here, all we had is the clothes around back. No job, no home, no money, no nothing. And I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. I went to the Jewish community for help, and I was refused. And we came here in December, and from Sweden. My daughter was not quite 2 years, fell out of crib and broke her hip. Ended up in the hospital. The hospital won't give her out till I paid. I had no money to pay. The longer she was there, the higher the bill went. But by that time, my husband had a job and went to his boss and asked him to advance him $100 undeducted every week so that we could pay the hospital. And that's what we did. And all he made there was $25 a week. My rent was $35 a month, no heat, no nothing, no electricity, no nothing. Everything had to be paid separately.
Wow.
But I'm here, I'm happy, and I wouldn't change with anybody.
What did you do when you
Raised my family.
raised your family? And did you raise them with Jewish traditions?
Yes, but they're not keeping it the way I'm used to when I was young. Let's put it that way. But then again, after the war, I didn't keep it as much as I did before the war either.
Why?
Why? Because a lot of us thought that if God could watch what was going on and not doing anything about it, how could he expect us to honor that?
Do you still believe in God? Do you believe in God?
Of course. Of course. I still believe in God. I know there is a God up there.
So why was there a Holocaust?
You know, who knows? Who knows?
And did you tell your children about your life, what happened to you?
Of course. Of course. They're aware of it. They're aware of it. My son, my daughter, it's in Montreal. And I have a granddaughter in Montreal, and I have a granddaughter here.
And why did you want them to know?
First of all, because they should know the history of the Jews, what they went through. And I don't know. To tell you the truth, I don't know. I just want them to know what people went through and what people suffered. But they still believe in God.
And was your husband a survivor? Was your husband a survivor?
If my husband was also, well, he survived in Russia. He escaped, he was from Warsaw. He was born in Warsaw. And he escaped in 1938 from Warsaw into Russia. And that's where he and one of his sisters, an older sister, went, and they both came back. And in the end, they both ended up here in Canada.
With you?
Well, the sister not, but my husband, of course. His sister just came to visit.
And do you remember anything else about life during the Holocaust?
Like, for instance?
Anything. Any stories, any memories? What did it smell like in the camps? Just.
Well, it was a mixed feeling, and people reacted differently. Some of them were more outgoing and helpful. Some of them were more selfish. Like in life. It wasn't much difference. It wasn't easy. But with a little goodwill, we survived. And that's the important thing.
And what happened to your father?
He died in Dachau. And my brother was shot down on the day of liberation. Because he and the Americans were flying by, dropping off food, and he ran out. After Blocksperre, he ran out to grab something, and the German soldiers shot him down. But if he would have lived, he wouldn't have had any good memories, because he worked in Auschwitz at the crematorium.
How do you know that? Did you see him?
No, but one of his friends with whom he was together, he just went to work. Once when they took us to Birkenau, because from camp where we were, we had to go to the baths once a week to take a bath at Birkenau. We passed the men's camp, and there was his friend whom I saw, and he told me, he says that my brother worked at the crematorium. And then he came back home, and he told me that he was shot.
And how do you process all that death and grief?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, in the beginning, maybe it was still the shock and all that I could grasp it now more than I did at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it is. I went down with the family and I came back alone.
And when you came back, did you feel anti-Semitism still?
From some people, yes. I know, like I said, this friend of mine to whom I went to school with and all that, she ran away. She disappeared with her husband. They went to Hungary when nobody knew her, and they didn't know anyway. You see, it was different because she had a sister who was a year or so older than she was. She was the exact opposite of her. She was helping as much as she could the Jews. So it's a very mixed thing.
Mm-hmm. And when you came to Canada, did you experience anti-Semitism here? What was it like?
I didn't really, maybe I didn't really look into it or watch it, but I didn't experience any. There might have been some French people, so, but in general, it wasn't that bad.
And now with the war going on in Gaza, what does that?
I be very honest with you. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to hear about it. I lived through it. I can't take it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have cousins there. Actually, it's my third cousin, but we're closer than regular cousins. I talk to her every single solitary week. I know what's going on, but I try to get out of it as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
At my age, I don't want to know no more. 98 in a few more weeks.
What advice would you give people today about how to live with what's going on now?
I'm not thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not thinking about it. I only tell people one thing: don't ever give up. Fight it. Because that's the only way to survive.
Do you think there'll be a time when there's no more anti-Semitism?
I don't think that ever gonna happen. I'm afraid that always gonna exist. Maybe more, maybe less, but it will always be there. It has been there for how many thousands of years? Can do nothing about it.
Why is it?
Who knows? Who knows when people cannot get along? I don't understand it. We're all human beings. We all were made the same way. Why can't we get along?
And why do you think you survived?
Who knows? Who knows? Sometimes I ask, why me? Why not the other one? And I say one more thing. If somebody has to die, better me than the youngest one. Because I had my life already. They didn't have theirs. So that's
And do you
what
have
it-
any other memories or stories that you want to share?
Well, you know, sometimes I can think of a lot and sometimes I can't think of anything really. Like when they say, try to get along and live as peacefully as you can. No matter what your nationality, no matter what your religion, we're all believe in one God. So why can't we get along? Why is there so much hatred? I don't understand it. I can't understand it. Why can't we help each other if we could? It doesn't cost anything.
You had some pictures you want to show us?
Sam, did you take some picture out there, honey?
Cut.
Finished?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who is that?
My mother,
And what was her name?
Margaret.
And do you have any memory you want to share of your mom?
Well, it's very funny because I remember her two ways. At her sister's wedding, when I was only 6 years old, wearing a dress, beige, small squares, beige and white, with a big yellow rose in the side. That's one. And the second picture, the last time I saw her alive, when she was leaving to go to another city to see a specialist, a doctor. And at the door, she turned around, she looked at me, and she said to me, take care of the children. I was 12 years old. Those are the two pictures that I see her in front of my eyes. One is a good one, one is not so good. My granddaughter, my granddaughter's wedding.
And who is that beside you?
My husband,
What's his name?
Nathan.
Cutting.
And who's sitting beside you?
Sure.
Who is that?
That's my son. That's my baby.
Does he have a name?
That's Sam. Samuel Frank.
And do you have other children?
And I have a daughter whose name is Margaret. I have two granddaughters, Jessica and Vanessa. And of course, my baby granddaughter, Autumn, who is 6 years old. Okay, this is my husband with my daughter and my son and me. The year must have been 1962, actually.
And
That's me in the red dress celebrating the birthday of my best friend. We are all together there. I suppose that must have been in 1938 or 39.
And how did you get the picture?
Pardon?
How did you get the picture?
The picture, my girlfriend had it in the States, and she sent me a copy of it. This is a picture of my mother and her sister. They are all together. Okay, that was our family room in Romania, and that's where I grew up with my grandparents and my parents. Okay, this picture is my mother's mother. It was taken in Israel, probably when she was in her 90s. This is a picture of my husband taken in Russia, fixing sewing machines. He was working there as a young boy. That picture was taken in Russia of my husband and his oldest sister. And they both survived and ended up in Canada. This is a picture of my husband and his sister, taken in Russia. My husband ended up in Canada, and my sister-in-law ended up in Israel after the war. This is a picture of my daughter when she was 12 years old, taken, I think, in Canada.
If you remember what it was like on the boat, what you ate, where you...
Okay, this is a picture taken on the boat coming over to Canada. And unfortunately, I was very sick, my daughter and myself. So one of my friends who were in Sweden with us, the children had whooping cough, and they were put into the hospital, which is at the top of the boat. So we spent the day with them to escape. We're ending up in the bottom of the boat and suffering. So that's the memory taken from the boat with us.
Match.com.
Okay, this is a picture of me taken probably in 1946, 1947, I don't remember exactly. So, just before I got married. Okay, this is a picture of me taken probably 1947, 1948, after I got married, and just looking at my husband.
all right, and we're gonna.
This is a picture of me taken probably in 1947, 1948, just after I got married, sitting there looking at my husband. Okay, this is a picture of myself and my husband and my little girl when we were on the boat coming to Canada.
Oh, it's all good. They can study that. The audio was good there. Can I get that one more time, please? Because I bumped it.
Do it one more time. Was this on the boat or was this after? It's not on the boat.
It's not on the boat, you're right. It was taken. I'm just Okay, this is a picture of myself and my husband and my daughter, probably taken in 1949, beginning 1950, and it must have been taken in Sweden, because that's where she was born, and that's where we were living at the time.
And why did you name her Marjorie?
Pardon?
Why did you name her Marjorie?
Why did I give her the name Marjorie? I named her after my mother. Because my mother was Margaret, so she was named after my mother. Okay, this is a picture of my husband and my daughter taken at her sweet 16th birthday, which we celebrated with about 50 of her friends. We were all together, and it's a nice memory to have. This is a picture of my daughter and my son when he was only a few months old. And it's very nice to see that I was able to give her a brother after so many years being an only child. Okay, so...
That's Margie's graduation?
Yeah. This is a picture of my granddaughter when she graduated from McGill with her master's degree, and we were celebrating together as a memory.
Great.
Masters in what?
This is the picture of my daughter and my son-in-law on their wedding. And at the bottom, it's a whole family together, which is a beautiful thing to remember and have a memory of. Unfortunately, my son-in-law is not with us anymore. Okay, this is a picture of my daughter and her husband with their two grandchildren, Jessica and Vanessa, which is beautiful to have the family to look at and to remember. This is a picture of my two grandchildren. The top one is of Jessica, all by herself, and the bottom one is of Jessica and Vanessa being together, and that's wonderful to have them, to see them how they looked when they were young.
I'm just going to do a different focus here, guys, just so we have it. Thank you.
Okay. This is a picture of my daughter, her husband, and her two children. They're vacationing upstate of New York, and it's very nice to see them all together being happy. This is a picture.
Sorry.
This is a picture of my son when he graduated of his master's, and we're celebrating all three of us together, and it's a beautiful memory to have. Okay, this is a picture of my husband with his sister visiting Ottawa and Quebec, and took her to see the capital city. This is a picture of my husband and her sister's family, her sister and the family in Russia, just celebrating all day. This is a picture of myself and my husband celebrating our 50th anniversary, where we're taking a cruise, which was supplied by my children. Okay, this is a picture of me and my husband celebrating something in Niagara Falls. But we are happy together, and that's the most important thing. Okay, this is a picture that I did with my mother, and that must have been done in 1938, 1939. That's when I learned how to do needlepoint with her. She loved to do that, and she loved to do crochet. She never knitted in her life. I never did crochet till I was 65, but I knitted all my life since the age of 8.
And
How did you get this picture?
After the war, when I went home, I went to visit a distant relative of mine, and I saw it on the wall there. And I told him, this picture is mine. So he took it off the wall and handed it back to me. So when I came to Canada, I took it with me, because that was the picture that I did with my mother. And that was a very, very important memory to me.